Hey guys, I'm Jessie, and today we are going to be talking about some books that I think are fantastic sci-fi books for fantasy readers. For the longest time, I was terrified to really get into sci-fi, specifically because I was like, there's no way, I'm not smart enough, it sounds complicated, I don't know, I get magic systems and stuff like that, but when you start adding in sciencey stuff, I'm like, but I did get into reading sci-fi, and I came to find out that I am not too dumb to read sci-fi. Some of the hard sci-fi is still a little but questionable. But there are so many fantastic sci-fi and sci-fantasy books that I think are perfect for people that typically read fantasy, high fantasy, epic fantasy, whatever that may be, and want to get into more sci-fi books that feel more familiar and have some of the same tropes and, things that we can really easily grasp as fantasy readers. So I wanted to share those books with you guys today. I will have all of the books listed down below, and I will have them all linked in my blog post as well. First and foremost, we have the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. This is a sci-fantasy, and it is one of my absolute favorites. This whole series, the Broken Earth series, is fantastic. It's a beautiful blend of science and fantasy. It does use some real-world science aspects in a fantastical setting, but it's post-apocalyptic, and the magic is more science-based because it's kind of an Earth magic, but it's more defined by science and reason, and it's hard to explain this book, but I love it. I actually have a full review of this series if you want to check it out. I highly recommend that you do because it kind of talks about some of the darker aspects, because this is a very dark series. As a mother, I had a very hard time with the first page. I bawled like a baby, and then multiple other times throughout the book I also cried. So look up the content warnings, check out the full review, should you read video that I'll link for you, but this bad boy, one of my favorites. Next up, we have Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This is Sanderson's YA sci-fi, and honestly, I think it is really great for fans of fantasy because it's really comfortable. For one, I know a lot of us read Sanderson, so it's not a huge jump to go from reading his Cosmere universe to reading one of his sci-fi books. This is not in the Cosmere universe, this is YA, but it is so good. And honestly, I've discovered that I like YA sci-fi. Maybe it's because I'm not that sciencey brained, but I like YA sci-fi. And if you don't know what Skyward is about, we follow Spensa, who is kind of stuck on this planet, and she wants to be a pilot. Human race is almost extinct. They're being attacked by these aliens, and they don't really know why. No one's really sure. But pilots are, super, super important in this world because they protect everybody. Spensa wants to be nothing more than to be a pilot. But because her father was a pilot and he deserted and betrayed his unit, she is also shunned because of that history. And she does somehow make it into pilot school. It's really, really hard for her. Everyone kind of hates her, and kind of for good reason. She's kind of annoying. She's kind of very brass and bold in an annoying way. But have you ever met a teenager? They're kind of annoying. So she's a little over the top with her monologues sometimes, but honestly it doesn't bother me because she does feel very much like an annoying teenager, and she does have a lot of growth throughout the series. There's some really cute friendships. There's not a lot of heavy romance. There's really no romance at all. I haven't read the 3rd book yet, but there's not really a romance real plot. There is a talking spaceship, so that's always a good time. And there's a doomslug. But it feels very much like something that fantasy readers would be able to easily get into, because a lot of the tropes are very similar with, you know, the extinction of Earth and fighting to overcome, you know, your place in society, like a lot of things that we're very used to. And yeah, I think this is great for fans of fantasy. Next, we have The Gone World by Tom Spelterlich. This is such an under-hyped, like under-recommended sci-fi standalone, and I loved it when I read it. It is like a female Gibbs from NCIS meets time travel, with like some end of the world post-apocalyptic stuff going on. Such a cool book. It's very much, I say it's good for fans of fantasy, but it's got a lot of like thriller elements in it. I would definitely compare this to something by like Blake Crouch, with that mind-bendy, time-travel-y, mystery, sci-fi aspect. I've read Dark Matter, and it really hits those same vibes. Honestly, I love it. It's set in 1997, but there's a lot of time travel, and it is so cool. It's hard to explain, but it's fun. So probably the weirdest book on this list is going to be Born by Jeff Vandermeer. Again, this is a standalone sci-fi post-apocalyptic kind of book, but it is strange. And if you've ever read any Jeff Vandermeer, or if you've like seen Annihilation, you know, like that's his jam. That's his whole thing, is he writes weird sci-fi, and I'm here for it. We follow this woman who's a scavenger kind of in this like end of the world place where there was this huge accident at like a biotech firm that destroyed everything, and now there's a giant flying bear that like kills everybody, and there's like little flying bears that are like part of it. But anyway, it's weird. So she's scavenging, and she finds this little blob that reminds her of like a sea urchin. So she brings it home and like nurtures it, and it grows into this convalescent blob thing that is sentient called Born. And she's like mom to it. And it's weird. And it's hard to explain. But I absolutely loved this book, and I think you should just go into it knowing nothing more than I just told you and ride it out. Another one we have is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, and I know this is super hyped. Everybody loves it. It inspired The Expanse, the TV show, and it's just a good book. It's, for one, a huge series, which us fantasy readers, we're used to. There's this big aspect of mystery, and there's a lot of things that I think are really comfortable for fantasy readers. There's not as much like hard sci-fi that really confused me. Maybe a little, but I really enjoyed my time in this book, and I think it's really great for people that are already like seasoned fantasy readers. Next, we have a self-published book, and that is Advent 9 by T. Allen Thorne. This book is crazy. It is a like superhero type book, but there is only one hero, and that is Advent 9, and he is a teenager, and he, you know, is all about saving people. And we get to see him and his like arch nemesis, and it's really interesting. At first I thought, okay, it's a superhero story, but then it hits. We have a neurodivergent superhero boy who doesn't really have, you know, friends or family or anybody other than himself. And he's got these super high values that he places upon himself. And he's fighting his like arch nemesis. And then at some point he has to team up with his arch nemesis, which I love that. That aspect of the story I really, really enjoy, where it's like they have to team up, and it's kind of like they start to see each other as more than just villain and hero. So I think that's really cool. There's also like a government kind of subplot there. So I think it's great. It's got some mixed reviews, but honestly, after talking with the author more in depth, asking some more questions while reading this, I honestly think that it's one that you need to check out. Some people have said that like autism rep within this book is not good. I am going to disagree, and especially after speaking with the author who shared their story with me and, you know, where they were coming from and, you know, their own personal history, which I do not feel comfortable stating without express permission. I don't think that it's bad rep. Again, I can't speak because I am not a member of that community myself. I do have a son on the spectrum, but take it as you will. I like it. So I say check it out. All right, then we have another self-published sci-fantasy book, and that is The Rave by J.R. Traz. Again, I have a full review for this book. I absolutely love it. The second book is out. The third book, I believe, is in progress. Let me tell Julian, where's my book 3? I need to know things. But I think this is really cool for fans of fantasy because there's, again, a lot of those similar tropes that we're used to. There's the orphan girl who was raised by her grandfather who doesn't really know who she is or what she is. And she's kind of a loner, and all she wants to do is to like prove herself, and she wants to just like save her home. And she enters into this they call it a rave, which is where it's like monster hunters. So she goes and she's trying to rave and get this one like massive like monster that is terrorizing the capital. And the problem is she's not like an officially licensed raver, but you know, she got that fake ID, and you know, there is a little romance subplot. There's some really cool friendship. There's a lot of politics and, you know, self-growth and learning about yourself. And there's so much going on. Like there's like fantastical magical elements kind of, but a lot of biotech and like technology, and I'm here for it. It is so cool. And then book 2 happens and you're like, what the F? And then you need more, and I need more. And I really liked this one. So pick it up. Again, a fantastic self-published book. I will not stop hyping self-published books here on this channel. And then finally, not self-published, but definitely underrated and underhyped. And that is The Disasters by M.K. England. This is like what I wanted Illuminae to be. I DNF'd it. And I DNF'd Aurora Rising. This is what I wanted in YA sci-fi. This is like queer characters that are funny and witty and broken and all of the things, and they're kind of like thrown together to save the world. And it's very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque in a way, like with the humor. So basically we are following this group of kids who get kicked out of a space academy on day 1. They are in the shuttle about to go home. So these are all the rejects. And the station is attacked. Everybody is killed. They are the only ones that escape. Now they're on the run and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They're trying to clear their names because now they're wanted and they're hunted. And they know that they have to like save the world basically. And it is so cool. This is just everything I want in a standalone, fun, rompy, YA sci-fi that just, mwah, I love it. I love this book. So if you haven't read it, get it. You're missing out, I promise. And that is all of the books that I have that I think are fantastic sci-fi books for fantasy readers. Again, they have some, you know, familiar tropes, familiar concepts, things that I feel like we can grasp onto as fantasy readers and be like, oh yeah, and kind of like relate it to things like magic systems and world building. So I say check these out. I have a couple more books on this list on my blog post if you want to check that out. But yeah, let me know what books you think are fantastic sci-fi books for fantasy readers, and let's have a conversation. All right, well, my name is Jessie, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.